Come with me as I take a trip to the world's only corn palace in Mitchell, South Dakota. The world's only corn palace is Mitchell's premier tourist attraction. Some 500,000 tourists come from around the nation each year to see the uniquely designed corn murals. The city's first corn palace was built as a way to prove to the world that South Dakota had a healthy agricultural climate. 8 years before the turn of the 20th century, in 1892, when Mitchell, South Dakota was a small 12-year-old city of 3,000 inhabitants, the world's only corn palace was established on the city's main street. During its over 100 years of existence, it has become known worldwide and now attracts more than 500,000 visitors annually. The palace was conceived as a gathering place where city residents and their rural neighbors could enjoy a fall festival with extraordinary stage entertainment, a celebration to climax a crop-growing season and harvest. This tradition continues today with the annual Corn Palace Festival held in late August each year. By 1905, the success of the Corn Palace had been assured and a new palace was to be built. But this building soon became too small. In 1919, the decision to build a third Corn Palace was made. This one was to be permanent and more purposeful than its predecessors. The present building was completed in 1921, just in time for the Corn Palace festivities. That winter, Mitchell hosted its first boys' state basketball tournament. The building was considered to have the finest basketball arena in the upper Midwest area. In the 1930s, steps were taken to recapture the artistic decorative features of the building, and minarets and kiosks of Moorish design were added, restoring the appearance of early-day Corn Palace. Today, the Corn Palace is more than the home of the festival or a point of interest of tourists. It is a practical structure adaptable to many purposes. Including among its many uses are industrial exhibits, dances, stage shows, meetings, banquets, proms, graduations, arena for Mitchell High School and Dakota Wesleyan University, as well as district, regional, and state basketball tournaments. USA Today named the Corn Palace one of the top 10 places in America for high school basketball. There was one other visitor at the Corn Palace with me that day, and boy was he a Huskies fan. The palace is redecorated each year with naturally colored corn and other grains and native grasses to make it the agricultural showplace of the world. We currently use 12 different colors or shades of corn to decorate the Corn Palace: red, brown, black, blue, white, orange, calico, yellow, and now we have green corn. A different theme is chosen each year, and murals are designed to reflect that theme. Ear by ear, the corn is nailed to the Corn Palace to create a scene. The decorating process usually starts in late May with the removal of the rye and dock. The corn murals are stripped at the end of August, and the new ones are completed by the 1st of October. Just like South Dakota agriculture, growing condition can affect production of our decorating materials and may delay the decorating process. The Corn Palace is known around the world as a folk art wonder on the Prairie of South Dakota. Mural designs are created by Dakota Wesleyan University students enrolled in digital media and design courses under the guidance of Associate Professor Kyle Herges. This partnership began with murals designed in 2019. Oscar Howe, named Artist Laureate of South Dakota, 1960. Born May 13th, 1915, at Joe Creek on the Crow Creek Indian Reservation in South Dakota, Oscar Howe was the third son of George DeCute Howe and Ella Fearless Bear, and was a full-blooded member of the Yanktonai Sioux of the Dakota Nation. Having developed a skin condition as a youngster, Oscar became a recluse to avoid those who would tease him. He found enjoyment through drawing. Oscar learned the basics of native art at the Santa Fe Indian School, and in 1939 was selected to teach art at the Pierre Indian School in 1940. The South Dakota Artist Project, under the WPA, commissioned Oscar to paint the interior dome of the Carnegie Library, located at the intersection of 3rd Avenue and Rowley in Mitchell. In 1942, Howe was inducted into the Army and did not paint for several years. During this time, he met and married Heidi Hampel, and in 1948, Oscar and Heidi had their only child, Inga Dawn. Howe became artist in residence at Dakota Wesleyan University, received his BA degree, and was appointed acting chairman of the Department of Art there. He was commissioned to illustrate a 2-volume work titled North American Indian Costumes. It was during this time he began designing panels at the Corn Palace. His work continued to grow in stature, and he found increasing success as he entered exhibitions and competitions, resulting in a healthy market for his paintings. Oscar went on to receive his MFA degree from the University of Oklahoma and was named Assistant Professor of Fine Arts at the University of South Dakota. Howe first paints his pictures on small panels according to the Corn Palace mural scale. After approval of the design, he engages in cartooning or outlining his sketches with chalk on full-scale black tar paper. These are nailed onto the bare panels. Each portion of the panel is given a color of corn notation. Work crews then perform a large-scale paint-by-number drawing according to the artist's direction. Corn is split and nailed to the panel. In addition to the yellow, red, blue, calico, and other colored corn, it has been estimated that 200,000 nails are used each year, plus 1,800 bundles of oats, 500 bundles of flax, and 8 truckloads of sour dock weed. Palaces of Prosperity. While much of the Middle West suffered from drought in 1887, Sioux City, Iowa looked like a green oasis in the middle of a desert. Abundant rainfall had produced excellent crops for over a decade. The city was the 3rd largest meatpacking center in America, with over 30,000 inhabitants. To celebrate their prosperity, citizens conceived the idea of a corn palace, never before built anywhere in the world. In August 1887, the Sioux City Daily Journal noted, St. Paul and Montreal have their ice palaces, which melt at the first approach of spring. But Sioux City is going to build a palace of the product of the soil that is making it the great pork-packing center of the Northwest. From the 1880s to the 1930s, at least 34 Prairie palaces sprang up in 24 towns across the Midwest. Entrepreneurs pummeled the newspapers with exaggerated claims of life on the prairie. Communities sprang up along railroad lines and experimented with the artistic nuances of grasses and grains while celebrating what was essential to their livelihoods. These palaces brought attention to the unique promise of each locale. However, only one prairie palace has endured, the world's only corn palace in Mitchell. corn, American gold. First valued by Indian gardeners for survival, corn became the gold that promised a bright future for Americans. In a book that promoted corn as a national emblem in 1893, the editor noted, "To the English settlers in America, corn was the general name for all kinds of grain, and they called the golden ears that they found here Indian corn. But its melodious native name is maize. No other plant," the writer declared, "is so typical of our greatness and prosperity as a nation. No other has such artistic meanings and possibilities. No other is so wholly and nobly and historically American." New Corn Palace, new era. Harvest time approached in 1920 with no Corn Palace. Plans were made to stage a circus-themed festival in a huge tent at 8th and Main. Potential visitors were enthusiastic, but foul weather intervened. The 1921 harvest was more properly celebrated with a new corn palace finished on the corner of 6th and Main. Improvements included concrete floors and doubling the seating capacity to 5,000, providing the largest stage and auditorium of any building in the state. No longer was the entire building covered in corn and grains. 14 exterior murals depicted the worldwide movement toward disarmament, and U.S. flags proudly reflected Mitchell's patriotism. The Dirty 30s. On October 29, 1929, Black Tuesday hit Wall Street and billions of dollars were lost. America spiraled downward into the Great Depression of 1929 through 1939, the deepest and longest economic downturn in the Western world up to that time. By that time, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt took office in 1933. The Great Depression had reached South Dakota in full fury. With it came searing summer heat, dust storms, grasshoppers, and anthrax. A killing livestock disease which also infected humans. Banks failed and farm prices dropped to disastrous levels. Shelled corn was selling for 2 cents a bushel and ear corn for 3 cents less, was the way one observer put it. Types of cheese for sale at the Corn Palace include raspberry jalapeno, ranch, pepperoni, honey barbecue, pizza cheese, smoky bacon ranch, Colby Jack, dill garlic, pepper jack, garden medley, Tex-Mex, and surprise cheese. New frontier and great society. Many Americans believed they were at the dawn of a golden age at the beginning of the 1960s. Charismatic John Kennedy became president in January 1961, and he promised the new frontier to eliminate injustice and inequality. After Kennedy was assassinated in 1963, President Lyndon Johnson declared that he would make the United States into a great society. Unfortunately, the Vietnam War took precedence and divided the nation. Young people protested while others fled to Canada to avoid the draft. Counterculture hippies grew their hair long and practiced free love. Martin Luther King Jr. and Bobby Kennedy were assassinated in 1968. By the end of the 1960s, it seemed that the nation was falling apart. Disco, disillusioned and divided. Disco and bell-bottoms were part of the 1970s, but it was also a decade of struggle and cultural change. The first Earth Day in 1970 launched a crusade to protect the environment. Congress approved the Equal Rights Amendment to the Constitution in 1972, but it was not ratified. A new right movement mobilized in defense of political conservatism and traditional family roles. Before impeachment over Watergate, President Richard Nixon resigned in 1974, and Gerald Ford took over. Clothes got creative, hair got longer, and pop culture distracted from deeper issues. The oil crisis of the late 1970s drew further attention to conservation. By the end of the decade, Americans were disillusioned and divided. Intriguing, surprising, and unprecedented. The first decade of the new millennium might be summed up with 9/11, George W. Bush, Afghanistan, Iraq, Hurricane Katrina, recession, Facebook, unemployment, Barack Obama, and YouTube. It seemed that there was intriguing and surprising news every day, along with an unprecedented level of technological developments. Agriculture supported 1/3 of South Dakota's economy, along with tourism, manufacturing, and service industries. Despite increasing urbanization, cattle remained essential to livelihood for rural families. The state's wide-open plains were home to 1.6 million beef cows by 2009, double the number of people. South Dakota led the nation in the production of bison and pheasants, and its 5 most valuable agricultural products were cattle, corn, soybeans, wheat, and hogs. Thanks for joining me on this tour of the world's only corn palace in my home state of South Dakota.